Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Average Joe Dividends YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to go over my budget, where I'll show you my expenses, income, and net worth. And what I do is I track every single expense. I put it down into this spreadsheet. I'll leave a link below, and you're welcome to use this spreadsheet to track your own expenses and your own income, as well as your own net worth. I think it's really important to track your expenses, because if you don't know what your life costs, you don't know what you have to plan for as far as like retirement. And in my case, I want to retire early, so I really need to know what my expenses are. If you're new to the channel, hey, welcome. I'm Average Joe, and I usually focus on dividend stocks, and we go over my portfolio and my buys that I do every week. I do 2 buys, but this video I think is equally as important, because really at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how much you earn or how much you spend. It matters how much you're able to, take away from it and save, and then ultimately invest. And you want to have a gap every month if possible. I know it's not possible every single month. You could have a big expense like a huge car repair. Your transmission goes out, it's $1,500, $2,000, and that really, it could blow up your budget easily. It'll blow up most people's budgets, frankly. So we'll go into my expenses. We're not going to go over everything line by line, but I'll hit some of the bigger ticket items. We'll go over like my utilities and things like that. And I am, by all means, I'm not the most frugalist person around. I spend money on things that bring me joy and happiness. I also have a few expensive hobbies. I'm a drummer in a band, and I just play out locally. I'm not in some national band, but I mean, we play out locally and we make a few dollars doing that. I'm also a competitive cyclist, and just the equipment, bikes alone, those are very expensive. Even just the parts on them, they're not cheap. So like I said, I do have a few expensive hobbies, but I try to have a gap. But also, I try to, watch my expenses, but also enjoy life at the same time, while also trying to early retire. So we'll just go over a few things. I'll highlight this expense right here at Guitar Center. And since I'm actively playing in a band right now, gigging, and I also play at a practice site, and I also like to have kind of a fun drum set. And to me, I like to have 3 drum sets, so I'm back up to 3 full drum sets, where I have one at a practice site, one for gigging, and one for kind of recording, kind of that nice drum set. And I found a used set of Tama Superstars. I know you guys probably don't care about that, but it's an upper end kit from the early 90s. It's a birch kit that was made in Japan, not one of the cheapy made in China ones. And this one needed a little bit of work. It needed a couple parts and pieces and new drum heads, which I'm working on. So that's what this expense was that hit me. We had Valentine's Day hit me. I kind of went overboard on the flowers there. Here it was a bigger expense for my gas and water, and I have a home that's heated by natural gas, and we had some below 0 days, and so kind of kicked up the MUD bill. And that's again my gas and water bill. And then over eBay, there's one extra drum I wanted to add to the kits, so that's part of this over here. So next month I'm not going to have these expenses for drums. And I actually got the drum heads. I got those with my work, where I got kind of a kudos from work, and I converted that into a $100 Guitar Center gift card to get me drum heads, and the difference was 17 cents. So I was able to get the drum heads and then put 17 cents my own money to rehead most of the drums. So we'll see here. So nothing major out here. We can see here was this is my internet bill through Cox. This is a drum bolt, and that completed my drum kit there, that $9.99. We'll take a look and see anything else. Here's my trash service. I pay every 3 months, so it's $22 a month for my trash service. Looks like I took the dog to a dog park, had a few drinks over there. And let me see here. Here's another big line item, which is my mortgage. And I'm trying to pay off my mortgage early. If I were just to make the minimum payment on it, it was $1,300 and change. So you can see I applied extra to that to try to get that down. And then let's see here. I have a son, and he's going to college, so I help out with his expenses here. And that was for the month of February. And let's see here. I bought a Nintendo game, but just even with the added expenses, really what drove up the expenses this month were the additional payments, roughly about $700 extra going to my mortgage, that drum kit. So I could have, cut back if I had any other extra expenses. I could have not gotten this. I could have just paid the $1,300 for the mortgage. I surely would have had a lot more extra money. Also, when my son graduates from college, and he's getting close, he is a junior, so next year will be the last of this. Of course, I may help him out with some things every now and then, but you can see here, here's the total expenses again. Every single time I made a purchase of any kind, it's all totaled here. So $4,449.60. And we'll go to the income side of it. And when I was younger, I really had just one thing. I had W-2. And you can see here I do have 2 lines for W-2, but look at the other things I'm generating income from. Of course, they're not nearly as large as the W-2, but I'm trying to build up the dividend side of the equation to replace the W-2. But you can see here's like interest in a savings account, checking accounts, and then here's M1 savings. This is my 1-year emergency fund over at M1. It's over $50,000 cash sitting over there, and that really helps me sleep better at night, and it also generates a pretty good sum of interest every month. And you can see some other things in here like dividends. So Verizon, for most people, you have it over here on this side of the equation, but Verizon is paying me every quarter. It's paying me over $60 in dividends. And I also do surveys over at Swagbucks. I'll leave a link below. And what I do is every morning I listen to YouTube videos, watch them, and I'm also doing surveys in the background and generating passive income in my own home. And then over at Synchrony, I have a 6-month emergency fund, just over $30,000 cash over there. So you can see I built up a nice cash runway. If something were to happen to my W-2, if that were to go away, I could apply the dividends and interest, and I wouldn't have to really saw into my savings that much if I cut back on buying like drum sets, as well as being very generous with gifts, things like that. Could cut back on other things, restaurant, things like that. I could make my life cost a whole lot less. And also, once my mortgage is paid off, it's going to be a huge line item going away from there. But you can see though, we have, here's my first paycheck of the week, dividends here from companies like Lowe's. Again, this usually appears on the expenses side, but Lowe's is paying me a dividend every 3 months. Same with, you can see American Express. Here's my 2% cash back credit card, and I was able to redeem $50 over there to apply towards expenses. And then here, Apple, small dividend. Here's a monthly paying dividend from Realty Income. You see AbbVie. Here's another $25 from Swagbucks for doing surveys. And then here's more dividends rolling in. Here's W-2. And it's lower than it's usually been because my company went to paying, I forget the term of, bi-monthly. But in essence, though, I'm going to be getting 3 paychecks in the months of May and October. The prior payroll system, it was just paying me 2 paychecks every month. So I was getting paid 24 times a month. I'm going to be getting paid 26 times per month. So it's kind of lowered each of my paychecks a little bit, but I get those extra paychecks again in May and October. And then I use Evidation, where it just tracks my steps, and I get paid like $10 like 2 or 3 times a month. So that's just a little money that just kind of trickles in to my account there. A little bonus, and then more dividends here. And here's another one, Costco. Usually it's over on this side of the ledger. I definitely do spend a lot more than $3.10 with Costco, but that the stock appreciation with Costco, I've like doubled my money in the past 4 years with Costco. Here is my YouTube income. I do not receive this every month. I receive like an average of like 30, maybe $35 every month. It's not much. I do these videos really for educational purposes, to show you guys what I'm doing and show you guys how to track your expenses, your income, your net worth, things like that. And here's found money. One day I was walking around, I found a nickel and a penny, and I picked it up. And when I go shopping at like Walmart, the grocery store, I do the self checkout. I put that 6 cents in there, and it took 6 cents off my bill. So every little bit counts. And then more dividends here. And here's a big dividend I receive every month from BlackRock's BST. That's the ticker symbol. And it's going to pay me even more in the month of March. But look at that dividend rolling in there. That's going to pay for my my home insurance as well as taxes. Once I do pay off that mortgage, this will more than pay for that. And we can see Starbucks. That was the last dividend I received. And again, usually it's over on the expenses side. And then here was the last survey I received, where I got $75 in surveys. So let's just do like a count up. Here was my W2 net. Here are the dividends I received in the month of February. And February it's a lower month for me. March is going to pay a lot more because most of my companies pay in the last month of each quarter. So February is the second month of Q1. And not that $688.34 is nothing. It certainly isn't. It pays a lot of expenses. And here is interest. This is interest paid to me in the form of interest, in savings and checking. That was the total of $323.89. Surveys paid me $75 there. Facebook, I didn't sell anything on Facebook Marketplace. Here's the YouTube income. And here is the W2 gap. How that is calculated is just my W2 income and subtracting out my expenses. That's not including the dividends, interest, surveys, or YouTube at all. So I had a gap of almost $1,000 at $982.41. So that really helps my cash position. And here is the gap with interest, surveys, Facebook, and YouTube, almost $1,500 at $1,497.02. And here in this box, just kind of show you kind of what I do and kind of my situation. So I mentioned before I had that $50 bonus with the FNBO cash back. So I use credit card bonuses, the 2%, and I try to do as many transactions as I can on the credit card, but I pay it off each and every month. I don't carry a balance. So that 2% cash back was a real thing. Added $50 or subtracted $50 off of my expenses. And then for my wireless, I use Mint Mobile, and I'll leave a link below if you want to sign up with Mint Mobile. I've been using it for like 3 years, and it's about $20 a month. They say 18, but when you count the taxes and the little fees in there, it's about $20 per month, and it works great. I used to use AT&T, and it was about $100 a month, so I cut $80 off of my expenses just by moving to Mint Mobile. And this month, the surveys I do over at Swagbucks, $75. I mean, that is real money that went right into my pocket. And then the dividends paid me $688, actually $688.34, but I just made it an even dollar amount there. And then interest paid me $323, And then my situation, I have a paid off car, and so I'm not making car payments, and my insurance is cheap on my car, and I use Progressive. Not that I'm trying to plug them, but they had the best rate on insurance. And you can see here I have no student loans, no credit card debt, and I'm paying $700 more to my mortgage principal. Just kind of, highlighting a few things with my life. And these expenses, these are just for me. I'm a single person, and I have a home. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath that I built in February. Just, what they call like a split entry, 1,600 square foot house that, I like it. It's a basic home. It has, new appliances. It has a 90 plus efficiency furnace. So my appliances are high efficiency, and you can see that in like, here's my electric bill. My electric was $68.63, and then my heating bill with, this is the coldest month, pretty much it covered January mostly, for the 163.60. So my expenses are pretty low as far as utilities, and my internet and all that stuff does pretty well. So sorry for the shaky screen, not sure what's going on there, but you can see here's the expenses breakdown. We can see my housing is a huge chunk because, again, I'm making extra payments towards my housing. Here's my grocery expenses, and we can see I split out grocery from restaurant. So restaurant's pretty small. I don't go out to eat that much. Try to cook at home for most of my expenses. My miscellaneous, really, that was heavier because of the drum set, or the part of a drum set. I don't want to say a full drum set, because like cymbal stands and cymbals, that's a whole nother expense. And then I have a son going to college, so that kind of kills me right now. But once he's out of school, once I pay off the house, my expenses are going to go drastically lower, and it's going to make retiring early a lot easier as a result. So we've gone over the expenses, we've gone over the income. Let's go over to the net worth side of it. And over at Vanguard, I have a traditional IRA, I have a Roth IRA, as well as a taxable brokerage account. And here is that balance rounded to the nearest $100. And over at M1, I have an IRA, sizable one. This one is pretty much, this is my employment's 401ks from 1996 to 2019 that I transferred over there. And they're just in basic ETFs, like total stock market ETFs, like Vanguard's VTI and VU. And then here's my current employer 401k over at T. Rowe, and I'm using FXAIX, which is a Fidelity S&P 500 fund. And then over at Synchrony, here is the 6-month emergency fund. Here's 2 months of expenses I have over at Capital One. Once it gets above that $10,000 mark, I transfer it over to Synchrony. And here's my M1 taxable brokerage account, which I do my videos over. And most of these dividends you see popping in here, like for Verizon, and the big one for BST, that 505.97, that is this taxable brokerage account over here over at M1. Here's my M1 savings account. This is my 1-year emergency fund. And then here is my home equity. So totally everything over here. And my home equity, that is my home value subtracting out what I owe on it. So you can see here is my total, almost at 1.8 million. And the stock market kind of had a bad week, so it's kind of been going down, which is okay, because I'll show you, just you can see the change here from February 2025, from, this should say January 2025, just the 1 month. So let's change that real quick. The 1 month change, I went down in net worth $11,100, and of course that's not good to see, but most of my months are positive, and they're positive much larger than $11,000. But look at, though, the change over the year from February 2024. My net worth has gone up over $250,000 at $251,000. And then look at over the last 2 years from February 2023, my net worth has gone up over $500,000 at $526,500 over the last 2 years. And that's just because of the stock market appreciation. And some months are good, some months are bad, some years are good, some years are bad, but the last 2 years have just been fantastic. I don't have words to even describe it. But let's look at January. We can look at the change there. I just want to show you how some months are better than others. Look at December 2024 to January 2025. And that change, my net worth went up 47,000. So you can see I have some good months and some bad months. But overall, though, over time, my net worth is just going up and up and up. You can see I had another bad month. That was a bad month. I went down 52,800, but let's look at November and see the change there. What happened to my net worth, where I went up $85,900. So you can see it's a roller coaster ride. But overall, though, over the years, you can see how my net worth just keeps going up. So that's all I had to show you guys for this video. Was my total expenses. You can see what my total expenses were, and they may be high for some, they may be low for some, because everyone has a different circumstance in their life. Same with income. I may be making more, I could be making a lot less. It doesn't but it doesn't matter though. Really, it comes down to what your gap is though. And you should be tracking your gap, and you should be investing your money. You don't want to be sitting on piles and piles of cash and not investing it. And you don't want to be spending all of your money so you have no gap. So that's why I do these videos I want to show you my progress, and hopefully I can inspire you guys. Hopefully you guys do way better. Hopefully you guys have a better gap, than I do, or you had a better month than I did. I would be ecstatic to see that or hear about that. So again, thanks for sticking to the end of the video. I also want to do a quick shout out to Amy Steinmuller, who did a $5 super thanks for my last video. Just thanks again. That means the world to me, Amy. I'm doing these videos and other people are watching it and actually giving me a super thanks. That was awesome. It made my day. Maybe what I'll do is I will pick out, or maybe you tell me, Amy, in the comments, I can maybe dedicate $5 to one of my stocks, where I put $5 extra towards it as a special thank you to you. So thanks again, everyone, for sticking to the end. If you got value from the video, please click the like button. Also subscribe so you do not miss future videos. Everyone, take care.